What question have you grown the most tired of answering?
I have to say one that I get a lot is, how am I going to deal with the possible typecasting that I might encounter in the future?
I must go, Master.
No.
This conversation's over.
This conversation's not over.
From being in a film like this and from playing such an iconic role, and quite frankly, I've had enough of it.
If you haven't guessed by now, this is the actor who played Anakin Skywalker in both Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, Hayden Christensen. His career is one that had me baffled and confused, because generally when actors land a role in a big movie franchise, they typically have no problem in getting roles afterwards. Even his own co-stars would go on to have successful careers.
I can't.
Say, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making blockbuster movies and billions of dollars.
But Hayden Christensen seemed unable to get hardly any roles afterwards. In fact, I have a challenge for you. Name one movie outside of Star Wars that you've seen him in. Yeah, probably none. And if you were able to think of one, it probably wasn't very good. You'd think the actor who is the lead in Star Wars, the second biggest movie franchise of all time, would have a very successful career. But no. In fact, every single movie that he was in after Star Wars, except for one, was a critical failure. To understand why he was in very few films after Star Wars, it's important to understand the reception of the prequels upon release.
Prince Charles tonight had the best seat in the house for the film just about everyone wants to see.
To set some context, the year is 1999.
Among the stars at the royal premiere of The Phantom Menace was Ewan McGregor.
I was sick from school today.
It's been nearly 16 years since the release of the last Star Wars movie.
People have been awaiting this for like 16 years.
You gotta understand, the release of this movie was an event.
It's going to be one of the many wonders of the world.
Similar to, if not more of an event than something like Endgame or No Way Home. This movie would kickstart a trilogy of films that would tell the tragedy of one of the most praised villains of all time. The movie had a ton of weight on its shoulders.
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs way down.
You didn't like it?
No, I think I deserve a public apology from George Lucas.
While it might not seem like it now, the movie was torn apart by critics at the time. The main complaint towards it was its awful dialogue. It's very Shakespearean.
I will not condone a course of action that will lead us to war.
Stiff.
What is going on down there?
And unnatural.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
Upon the release of the next two films in the trilogy, they also were criticized for their terrible dialogue. But they also had another complaint that wasn't present in The Phantom Menace. Hayden Christensen.
What?
Critics agreed that he was very stiff and awkward. Audiences didn't like the fact that the menacing villain from their childhood was turned into a sad, brooding teenager.
He's holding me back!
This doesn't suck. This is very cool because you know, you guys voted for it and so...
His performance was so hated upon that he won the Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Supporting Actor in Attack of the Clones, as well as Revenge of the Sith. You would think this is the reason for his decline. No one would want an actor who starred in poorly received blockbusters in their movie, let alone one who received the Worst Supporting Actor award twice. It's gotta be what put his career in shambles, right?
Okay, I feel really attacked.
Well, no. Ewan McGregor would go on to have a very successful career, starring in big budget and well-received movies alike.
I wrote a lot that night. I had so much to say.
Natalie Portman, who was nominated for Worst Supporting Actress in Attack of the Clones as well, would also have a very successful career, even winning Best Actress in 2011 for her performance in Black Swan. So why is it that Hayden Christensen, who was the lead of these movies, didn't have the same story?
I do think that for me, Star Wars brought freedom in many ways. Well, what did it bring to you?
It would be easier to count the ways that it didn't affect my life.
Let's take a look at the rest of his career.
Hayden Christensen is out to prove that he is much more than a lightsaber-wielding sci-fi star. He's flexing his acting muscles in Shattered Glass,
which actually looked promising at first. Between the releases of Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith was the movie Shattered Glass, which is the one movie he was in that was a critical success. Yes, out of every movie he stars in, this is the only one that was a critical success.
Not a criminal, Chuck.
This drama is based on the real events of the journalist Stephen Glass, who is the character Hayden Christensen is performing in this movie. I can say for one that it was actually a pretty good movie. As for Hayden's performance, I have some notes. I was actually very impressed by it. The character he plays is a stiff and awkward nerd, and he plays him with a certain sense of real accuracy.
Oh.
Well, that's a compliment to his performance in this movie, but not so much for him as an actor. And while this movie was a success on the critical side, it was a huge loss in the box office. It made back less than half of its core budget alone. And that's not even taking marketing into account. He tried to replicate his success in the drama genre, but that didn't quite work out for him, and then he tried dipping his toes in the genre of action thrillers.
But as an audience member, action movies are the ones that I really enjoy.
The decision of him trying out this genre was actually very smart from a business standpoint. Generally, action thrillers with popular casts at the very least gain recognition, which the first action thriller he tried did exactly that. If there is one movie outside of Star Wars that you've seen him in or heard of him in, there's a good chance it's Jumper. Jumper gained a good amount of recognition. It was a success at the box office, earning more than $200 million. The director of this movie was Doug Liman. If you don't know who he is, then you've definitely heard of some of his movies. The cast is fairly popular. Samuel L. Jackson even had a big role in it, and it was an adaptation of a fairly successful novel. Because of all these reasons, it's his most high-profile movie outside of Star Wars. The problem is that it was a critical failure.
Right, Jumpers.
The cast and effects are mostly impressive, but the writing is awful. They write the main character, who is played by Hayden Christensen, as a selfish jerk who uses teleporting powers for his own personal gain. But it was a box office success, and it was fairly popular. While it is a rocky start, it was at least popular, and it could have been a worse start to this genre. So how did his other action thrillers do? Well, his next four, Takers, Outcast, American Heist, and First Kill, should have all been successes. I mean, he stars alongside genuinely big actors like Idris Elba, Nicolas Cage, Adrian Brody, and Bruce Willis. But they were all critical dumpster fires. On the box office side, Takers made just enough money to break even when you factor in marketing, but Outcast, American Heist, and First Kill didn't even receive a theatrical release and went straight to DVD.
I was curious, how it was that you got involved with this project?
I really don't like the way you're treating me, Chuck. I didn't do anything wrong, okay?
He tried starring in a few more dramas, chick flicks, and even a horror movie, but those all flopped as well.
do anything wrong, Chuck.
I really wish you'd stop saying that!
Ultimately, in 2010, he decided to dial back on acting quite a bit. He didn't completely quit acting, but the projects he appeared in after this were very few. He said in an interview with Yahoo, quote, "I felt like I had this great thing in Star Wars that provided me all these opportunities and gave me a career, but it all kind of felt a little too handed to me. I didn't want to go through life feeling like I was just riding a wave." He tried to escape the trap that many big movie stars encounter when they land a role in a popular franchise. Try watching another movie with Chris Evans in it. It's very hard not to see him as Captain America. He tried to create an acting career that wasn't tied to Star Wars.
I think after I finished Star Wars, there was still a desire for me to sort of go back to kind of smaller, more independent filmmaking.
But ultimately, the Star Wars shadow was too large for him to escape.
I just sort of tried to not so much think about navigating a career as much as I was just trying to do work that appealed to me and play characters that I thought would challenge me and help me grow as an actor, and that was a great freedom.
Didn't expect to see you so soon.
He's recently returned back as Anakin in the Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ahsoka show.
When you decided to be back for the Obi series, what was behind that decision?
If these shows were made 10 or so years ago, his return would not be as impactful.
Just the nature of getting the invitation.
Most people were still on the fence about the Star Wars prequels at that time, but as time has gone on and those people have gotten older, they've accepted the prequels as the origin of Darth Vader, and their nostalgia glasses have been screwed on tighter. The general audiences for these Star Wars shows are now more than excited to see him appear in them. He used that to his advantage to gain recognition once again. Sometimes you need to accept when you've been beaten.